Welcome to At the Field's Edge. I'm Rowan Lund. This podcast follows the Wheel of the Year and the stories, the traditions and the contemplations that each season carries. It's a personal journey as much as anything else, rooted in the Druid tradition and the ongoing work of paying attention. Today's episode is about trees, specifically one tree, very old and very close to home, and what it opens up when you sit with it long enough. We'll be moving through mythology, through history, and through a word I find I keep returning to at this time of year. I hope it finds you well, wherever you are. There's an oak tree in the village of Marton in the Cheshire plain that was already old when William the Conqueror landed on these shores. Old, perhaps, when the Vikings came. Its trunk is vast and hollow now at the heart, as ancient oaks become. It stands beside a church that was built, in part, from its own fallen branches. The tree and the building have been neighbours for so long that it's almost impossible to say which one consecrates the other. We don't know exactly how old it is. The Marton Oak is reckoned among the oldest trees in England, possibly in Europe, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 years of continuous life. And it's here, in Cheshire, in the landscape I walk in. And I find something deeply steadying in that fact. Not just the age, though the age is staggering, but what the age means. That tree has stood through the entire arc of what we call English history, and a good stretch before it. It's been here through plague and reformation, through enclosures that stripped the landscape of its wildness, through the Industrial Revolution that rewrote what it meant to be human in the world, and now as we stand at the edge of another transformation just as profound, one that threatens to remake thought itself, it's still here, in leaf, in June, doing what oaks do. And that feels like it's worth sitting with. The oak has always been the spine of the British sacred landscape. It's not the most beautiful tree. I think that the silver birch takes that crown. And it's not the most mysterious either. That perhaps is the yew standing in its churchyard darkness. But the oak is the central tree, the one that holds everything together. Part of that is simply physical. A mature oak supports more life than almost any other native tree. Hundreds of species of insects, lichen, birds and mammals. It's not just a tree, it's a world. A nemeton in itself, you might say, though we'll come back to that word in a little while. When you stand beneath a fully leafed oak in June, you're standing inside a living community of extraordinary complexity and age. The rustle above you isn't just wind and leaves, it's a conversation that's been going on for centuries. And then there's the word Druid itself. The etymology is contested, as these things always are, but one of the oldest and most compelling readings connects it directly to the oak. Dru is possibly from the Proto-Indo-European root for oak or tree, and wid, well, to know or to see. So the Druid is the one who knows the oak, or who sees through it. The one who reads the world through the lens of a tree. Now, whether or not that etymology is a final word, it tells us something true. The oak and the Druid have always belonged to each other. But let's talk about the mythology. because there's a story told about the oak that runs through modern Druidry and paganism like a river. The story of the Oak King and the Holly King. Two figures, twin kings, locked in eternal contest. The Oak King rules the waxing year, from midwinter to midsummer as the light grows and the green world rises. The Holly King rules the waning year, from midsummer back to midwinter as the light retreats and the darkness returns. At each solstice they meet, they fight, and the defeated king gives way to his twin. It's not death exactly, it's more like a handing over, a necessary surrender to the turning of things. And it's a compelling vision. It makes the year feel alive, not just a sequence of seasons, but a drama, a contest with genuine stakes, resolved and renewed twice annually. And it maps beautifully onto the landscape. In June, the oak is at its height, dense, green, almost impossibly full. The holly, meanwhile, stands dark and patient, waiting for its turn. Now, I want to be honest with you, as I always try to be about these things. This mythology, in the form we know it, is largely the creation of one man, Robert Graves, writing in 1948 in a book called The White Goddess. Graves was a poet, a classicist, a mythographer of extraordinary imagination, and, it has to be said, somewhat unreliable scholarship. He wove together fragments of Celtic and classical material, genuine folklore and inspired invention into a grand unified theory of the sacred feminine and the sacrificial male. The Oak King and Holly King, as we tell the story today, flows from that work. Ronald Hutton, the historian who's done more than anyone to honestly examine the roots of modern paganism, is characteristically measured about Graves. The scholarship doesn't hold up. The sources are misread, invented, or forced into a framework they were never meant to support. And yet, Hutton also understands, as any observer must, that Graves was reaching for something. Not fabricating from nothing, but sensing a pattern in the turn of the year and giving it a shape. The oak tree and the holly tree genuinely do mark the year's two poles in the British landscape. The symbolism has its own internal logic, its own seasonal truth. Graves didn't invent the fact that June belongs to the oak and December belongs to the holly. He gave that fact a story, and stories matter. Not because they're history, but because they're true in a different way. They make the invisible visible. They give the year's turning a face. And this is something that Druidry has always understood, I think, that symbolic truth and historical truth are different things and both are necessary. We don't need the Oak King to be a pre-Christian deity worshipped at Stonehenge for the story to do its work. We need it to be alive. And it is. There's a word I want to introduce here, because it belongs to this moment in the episode and to this moment in the year. Nemeton. It's a Gaulish word, one of the few that we have from the ancient Celtic world, and it means broadly sacred grove or sacred space, or perhaps more precisely, a place set apart, a clearing in the forest where something other than the ordinary could occur, where the boundary between the human world and whatever lies beyond it become for a moment permeable. The word survives in place names scattered across the Celtic world. Nemetona was a goddess, and her name literally means she of the sacred grove. Aquiar Nemetii, the Roman name for Buxton in Derbyshire, just over the border from us here in Cheshire, translates roughly as the waters of the goddess of the grove. These names are breadcrumbs, traces of a sacred geography that once mapped this landscape completely. We don't have a clear record of what happened in a nemeton. The Romans, who were not entirely reliable witnesses, described the Druids conducting their rites in forest clearings away from built structures under open sky and living wood. And there's probably truth in that, even filtered through a hostile lens. The grove as temple, the tree as pillar, the canopy as roof. What we can say is this: the nemeton wasn't just a location, it was a relationship between a community in a particular place, between human consciousness and the more than human world. The grove was sacred not because someone declared it so, but because something was recognised there, something that was already present. And here's what strikes me about that, standing as we do in the oak's fullest month. The nemeton and the oak belong together. The great sacred groves of the ancient world weren't pine plantations or tidy parkland. They were oak woods, dense, complex, buzzing with life. To enter one in June would have been to step inside that living community I described earlier, but now understood as holy, as a threshold. And that word, threshold, is worth holding on to, because the nemeton wasn't somewhere you lived, it was somewhere you went to be changed, to be, for a moment, at the edge of something larger than yourself. We'll come back to the nemeton in future episodes, because it's too central to Druidic understanding to exhaust in a single episode. But for now, I want to leave you with this image: an oak wood in June, in full leaf, light filtering green through the canopy. Somewhere in this landscape, probably not far from where you're listening, there's a place like that, and maybe there always has been. So we come back to where we started, to Marton, to the oak tree standing in a Cheshire village, hollow at the heart, older than almost everything around it. What moves me about the Marton Oak, even at a distance, even as a meditation rather than a personal encounter, it's what it represents about continuity. Not just the continuity of a single living thing, remarkable as that is, but the continuity of a relationship. People have known that tree as sacred, or as significant, or simply as present, for a very long time. The thread connecting us to whoever first looked at that tree and felt something, well, that thread hasn't broken. It's thinner in places, and it's been neglected, misread, or reimagined, but Robert Graves got hold of it and wove it into something that wasn't quite true, but wasn't quite false either. And here we are in the 21st century, in the middle of another great upheaval, picking it up again. And that's what walking a Druidic path means to me at its simplest. Not the reconstruction of something lost, but the recognition of something that was never entirely gone. June is the oaks month. The canopy is full, the light is green, and the world is at the height of its generosity. So if you have an oak near you, and in Britain you almost certainly do, I'd invite you to spend some time with it this month. Not necessarily to do anything, just to be present with something that has been present for a very long time. The Marton Oak doesn't need us to remember it, but we might need it to remember ourselves. Thank you for walking this stretch of the path with me. At the Field's Edge follows the Wheel of the Year, so the next episode will come when the season calls for it. If the Marton Oak has been sitting with you as you listened, if there's a tree of your own that comes to mind, I simply say, go and find it. You don't need to do anything when you get there. Until next time, go well.
Night, green fire under frost and stone, through sleeping roots and buried seeds I called the sunlight home. I climbed the wheel of springtime skies, through blossom, leaf and rain, and every field beneath my feet awoke to life again. Turn the wheel and let it sing, oak and holly, king to king. One must rise and one must fall, yet neither loses all.
Through the dark and through the light, we keep the balance of the year. Hand to hand the crown is passed, and both remain here.
I waited in the deepest green, where shadows learn to grow, silent in the summer leaves, where hidden rivers flow. I watch the sunlight fill the world, I watch the branches bend, for every height of summer knows the turning waits at the end. Turn the wheel and let it sing, oak and holly, king to king. One must rise and one must fall, yet neither loses all.
Through the dark and through the light, we keep the balance of the year. Hand to hand the crown is passed, and both remain
Summer, beneath the boughs we meet where seasons cross, not in anger, not in war, but knowing what is lost. One steps forward, one steps back, the green world understands. The crown was never mine alone, it passes through our hands. Oak and holly, king to king. Summer's gold and winter's flame,
forever trade the name.
Through the dark and through the light,
the ancient rhythm calls.
the forest keeps its sacred vow, and
neither king ever
holly to